She was nothing, discarded, broken, and left to perish under a foreign sky. No name, no hope, no future. Until he came. A human, against every instinct and warning, chose compassion over caution. He didn't just save her life, he gave her something she'd never known before, a reason to keep living. In a galaxy that deemed her worthless, one man's kindness would rewrite her fate forever. Under the scorched lavender skies of Reiner 4, where the twin suns beat down upon the sand-strewn valleys with relentless fury, she lay still. Her skin, pale and marbled with faint violet hues, was blistered and raw from exposure. A torn garment fluttered loosely over her frail frame, the last remnant of dignity after she'd been cast out from the slave barge like unwanted refuse. The engines had screamed as it vanished into the horizon, leaving her to be claimed by the wasteland. Her breathing was shallow, more memory than necessity now. Somewhere deep in her subconscious, the girl accepted that death was coming, and perhaps she welcomed it. But death did not come. Instead, warmth did. Not the kind that burned skin or dried tears, but the kind that wrapped itself gently around her like a memory. Arms, strong and unfamiliar, cradled her. A soft, human voice broke through the fog of unconsciousness. "I've got you, it's all right now." Her eyes fluttered open. For a moment, the sight was blurred, smeared with pain and fatigue. Then the face came into view, sun-tanned, dirt-smudged, with blue eyes hardened by the world but softened by something. Compassion? Humanity? A human. He was holding her. In a universe where her kind was deemed expendable, where the phrase alien surplus justified disposal, a human had stopped. Not just to look. Not just to pity. But to carry her from the dust. She tried to speak, but her throat was dry, tongue thick and useless. Her head lolled, resting against his chest. He didn't flinch. He didn't recoil from her grime or stench or the stigma of her species. Instead, he walked. His name was Caleb. A scavenger by trade, he had spent the last 5 years combing through forgotten battlefields and wreckage zones on Reiner 4. The pay was meager, the work dangerous, but it was honest, and more importantly, it kept him away from the politics and cruelties of the core worlds. He'd found her near the wreck of an old slave carrier, still smoking from its emergency landing. There had been no survivors, or so the authorities claimed. Yet there she was. Bruised. Starving. Barely alive. Caleb didn't hesitate. He lifted her from the sand and brought her to his outpost, little more than a reinforced pod with solar panels and a makeshift purifier. He laid her on his cot, covered her with a thermal blanket, and administered what little medical aid he could. She didn't speak for 3 days. But her eyes watched him. She noted the way he moved, gentle yet efficient. The way he avoided unnecessary noise. The way he left food and water nearby, never forcing, never hovering. He spoke sometimes, to himself mostly, or maybe to fill the silence. She learned about his ship back on orbit, his dog that died last year, his distrust of the Federation, and how he hated seeing people treated like things. She didn't trust him. Not yet. But she didn't fear him either. On the 4th day, her voice cracked the silence. "Why did you save me?" Caleb paused mid-step, turning slowly. He didn't answer right away. He looked at her, really looked at her, and then sat down on the crate opposite the cot. "Because you were there. And because no one else would." Tears welled in her eyes. Not because of his words, but because of the truth in them. Her name, he eventually learned, was Sira. She came from the Yalari, the species known across several systems for their empathic abilities, soft features, and, tragically, their value on the black market. She'd been taken during a border raid on her colony. Her parents were killed. She was 10 when she was first collared. 12 when she was auctioned off. 18 when the rebellion on Caro Prime caused her captors to flee, and in their haste, she was deemed non-essential cargo. Caleb listened, never interrupting, jaw clenched and eyes shadowed with anger. When she finished, she turned her face away. "I'm broken," she whispered. "You're breathing," he replied. She glanced back. "That means you're not done yet." Weeks passed. Sira began to move around. Her body, though weakened, responded to nourishment and rest. Her spirit, however, was another matter. There were days she wouldn't speak, nights when she screamed from dreams she wouldn't explain. But Caleb never pushed. He offered her space and silence. Sometimes music. Sometimes stories. They repaired the outpost together, fixed the purifiers, even reprogrammed a maintenance droid that now trailed them both like a metallic puppy. And slowly, very slowly, she began to smile. It was a ghost of a smile at first. A fleeting thing. But it grew. She laughed one evening when Caleb burned dinner, trying to cook an old Terran recipe. The sound startled even her. But Caleb grinned wide, as if the burnt stew had been a gourmet victory. "Next time," he said, "you're cooking."
"Deal," she replied.
But peace is never eternal on frontier worlds. 2 months after Syrah's recovery began, the patrols arrived. Not local law enforcement, real Federation scouts.
Drones.
Scanners. Soldiers with clipboards and rifles.
They didn't knock. They didn't ask.
They simply entered Caleb's property and began cataloging everything.
Syrah froze.
Caleb stood between her and them. "What's the meaning of this?" he demanded. "Routine inspection," said a lieutenant without looking up. "We have reason to believe a Class C asset may have been illegally obtained or hidden in this zone."
"Asset?" Caleb spat. "She's a person."
"She's a Yalari," the man corrected. "And if she was previously tagged, she must be surrendered for reassignment." Syrah stepped out from behind Caleb then. Her legs trembled, but her gaze did not.
"No," she said.
"I'm not going back." The soldiers raised their rifles. Caleb moved faster. He activated the EMP pulse he'd hidden in the entrance panel, a desperate gambit, but effective. The blast knocked out comms, scanners, and weapons in a single breath. The soldiers reeled.
Alarms screamed.
Caleb grabbed Syrah's hand.
"Time to run."
They reached the orbit shuttle with barely minutes to spare. The old freighter, patched and unreliable, groaned as it lifted off.
But it flew.
Away from the authorities. Away from the desert. They didn't speak much during the flight. Words felt too fragile. Only when they reached deep space, uncharted, anonymous, did Syrah exhale. "I can't keep running forever," she murmured. Caleb glanced at her.
"Then we stop. Someplace new. Someplace yours." "Yours too?" she asked. He took her hand.
"Mine too." She leaned against him. And for the first time in her life, she believed in something she'd only heard in whispers.
Home. Not a place. Not a planet. But a person.
She had never imagined she'd survive the night beneath those alien skies, her body battered, her spirit frayed by abandonment and cruel years spent in servitude to races that had long since forgotten compassion. But now, she lay against the warmth of something. Someone who hadn't turned away.
A human, of all things.
The very species spoken of in cold warnings by her former masters. They called humans chaotic, unpredictable, dangerous. And yet, when she opened her eyes, it wasn't danger she found in his gaze, but defiance. Not the defiance of a soldier against an enemy, but of a man against the inhumanity of the universe. He had wrapped her in the warmth of a scavenged thermal blanket, one that had probably seen better days, yet it felt like silk after the cold silence of the wastelands. His name was Elias. A frontier settler, he told her later, and a former engineer who had traded a life of war and circuits for one of quiet solitude on the edge of the known galaxy. His home was not grand, more a rugged shelter crafted from shipwreck salvage and local materials, but it was safe. And safe was something she hadn't known since before she could remember. Her name, once uttered with derision by her captors, now sounded softer on his lips.
Tlari.
He didn't mispronounce it, nor did he ask her to shorten it to something more human. Every time he said it, it felt less like a mark of her alienness and more like something precious. At first, Tlari flinched at every sound, hoarded morsels of food as though they would vanish, and slept with one eye open, braced for pain. But Elias never struck her.
Never shouted.
He worked during the day, gathering water, repairing solar panels, modifying drones to survey the perimeter.
And he talked. Oh, how he talked.
Stories of Earth and its rain-drenched cities, of animals she couldn't picture and oceans so vast they defied logic. And slowly, as his voice filled the silence, the haunting echo of the slave pens in her mind began to fade. When she cried out in her sleep, caught in nightmares where chains once again bound her limbs and cruel laughter filled the air, Elias would come, not with reprimands, but with a calm presence. Sometimes he didn't speak at all, just sat beside her, letting her know that she wasn't alone anymore. One day, while helping him harvest a row of oddly sweet root vegetables, her hand brushed his. She froze, expecting him to pull away, to remind her of her place as the universe had done so many times before.
But he didn't.
His fingers closed around hers, gently, as though asking permission.
She looked up, heart thundering. "You don't have to be afraid of touch anymore," he said. "Not here. Not with me." That night, something shifted. They didn't kiss, not yet. But they sat together in silence, the kind of silence that needed no words. The kind that said, "I see you. I accept you. I care." As weeks turned into months, Tlari's frailty transformed into strength. She began to help Elias with his work,
modifying his drones with the technical skills she'd once been punished for showing. She even laughed, tentative at first, like testing a new voice, but it grew bolder with time. Elias never pushed, never demanded gratitude. He just cared. And in a universe that had discarded her like refuse, that alone was revolutionary. Yet peace was a fragile thing in the outer colonies. One morning, the warning beacon Elias had set up flashed crimson. A patrol ship from the Varn coalition, the very slavers who had once branded her kind as genetic surplus, was sweeping the area. Panic surged in her, old reflexes urging her to run, to hide, to vanish. But Elias stood firm. "You're not a secret," he told her. "You're not a possession. You're a person. And I will not let them take you again." She wanted to believe him. But the coalition's reach was long, and its justice ruthless. When the ship landed nearby, and armored figures stepped out, Tlari braced for the inevitable. But Elias didn't offer her up. Instead, he stood between her and the soldiers, calm but unyielding. "There's no contraband here," he said. "This is my land, my home. You have no jurisdiction." "We've detected unauthorized alien biosigns," the lead officer snapped. "The female." "She's under my protection," Elias replied. "You'll have to go through me." The standoff felt like it stretched across light years. But something about Elias, his steel, his conviction, gave them pause. Perhaps they were wary of Earth's growing influence. Perhaps they saw the fire in his eyes and realized he would not break easily. Whatever the reason, they left. And Tlari, shaken but free, fell into his arms as the ship disappeared into the clouds. That night she wept, not from fear, but from a relief so profound it hollowed her out. "Why?" she whispered. "Why risk everything for me?" Elias brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Because no one ever should have treated you like less than a person. Because I see you, Tlari. All of you. And because I think I'm falling in love with you." The words hit her like gravity after floating for too long, anchoring, real. "I don't know how to love," she admitted. "Not properly." "Then we'll learn together," he said. Over the next seasons, love became a language of its own between them. A shared glance during work, hands brushing during meals, the way they stood back to back when surveying the wilds. And slowly, their bond deepened. It wasn't sudden, nor dramatic like the operas Elias sometimes played. It was patient, earned, like rebuilding a shattered instrument string by string. One night, as the twin moons rose, casting silver across the plains, Elias led her to the top of the ridge. "I used to think I came here to escape people," he said. "But maybe I was waiting for you." Tlari took his hand. "And I thought I would die alone beneath foreign skies. But I opened my eyes, and there you were." "Will you stay?" he asked. She didn't hesitate. "Yes. With you, always." The wind carried their laughter across the stars, two broken souls no longer adrift. And in that strange corner of the galaxy, a human and an alien who once knew only pain found not just survival, but love, purpose, and a future neither had dared dream. For though the stars were vast and the galaxies cold, there would always be warmth where their hearts touched. And under alien skies no longer hostile, they built a life that no one could ever take from them.